the organ harvesters of the border zone. Episode 1, The Van in the Ditch. I didn't find that van myself. By the time it reached my archive, it was already a story. Then a file, then 3 files, then a pattern. The first time I heard about it, it was just a tired man calling into a late-night radio show. A truck driver, 49 years old, divorced, smoked too much, said he'd been running freight across the border for longer than most of the listeners had been alive. He didn't sound like the kind of man who scares easily. You can hear that in the recording. His voice is worn, almost bored, when he starts. But toward the end, you can hear his cigarette shaking against his teeth. I got the raw audio a few months later, and the photos, and the police report that was never meant to leave the system. They all talk about the same thing, a white van in a ditch. It was sometime after 2 in the morning when he first saw it. Long, empty road. You know the kind. No gas stations, no rest stops. Just dust, weeds, and old reflectors half peeled from their posts. He said the sky was clear, no moon. Just that kind of suffocating darkness you only get far from cities. The stretch of road runs about an hour from the official crossing, but everyone who drives it knows there are other ways across. He comes around a soft bend and sees the glint of metal in his headlights. At first, he thinks it's just another wreck. Happens all the time out there. Drunk driver, someone fell asleep at the wheel. The van is nose down into the ditch, rear wheels still on the edge of the asphalt, like it slid slowly, not crashed. No skid marks, no broken glass. That's the first thing that bothered him. Accidents are messy. This looked placed. He slows the truck, puts the hazards on, and pulls as far over as he can. According to the report, he sat there for a full minute just watching, waiting to see movement. A door opening, a hand waving, anything. Nothing. He grabs his flashlight, steps down from the cab, and the first thing he notices is the silence. Out there, you usually hear something. Crickets, wind, the faint rumble of your own engine cooling. But in his statement, he mentions that very clearly. It sounded like someone had pressed mute on the whole world. He walks up to the van. It's one of those generic white medical transport models. No company logo, no clinic name, just white. Too clean for that road, he said, like it hadn't been out there long. The rear doors are closed. The front driver door is slightly ajar, just enough to make a shadow. He calls out. No answer. He goes to the driver's side, pushes the door open with 2 fingers. The dome light comes on. No driver. Seatbelt hanging loose. Keys still in the ignition. Radio off. No blood. No sign of a struggle. Just the faintest smell of... He couldn't place it at the time. Later, when he gave his second statement, he settled on the word metallic. He leans in and sees the first detail that makes him want to call the police. There's a clipboard on the passenger seat. White paper, black ink, no logo, no letterhead, just a list of words in neat, precise handwriting. Heart, check. Liver, check. Left kidney, check. Right kidney. Pending. No names. No patient numbers. Just that. At this point, most people would have gotten back in their truck and driven away. But he was practical, not superstitious. He thought maybe it was some messed up medical joke. Maybe the van was stolen from a hospital, and he was worried whoever drove it might be lying hurt somewhere in the ditch. So he circles around to the back. The rear doors are locked. He tries the handle once, nothing, twice, nothing, and that's when he notices the scratches. Around the inside edge of the door, where it meets the frame, the paint is worn down to bare metal in thin, desperate arcs. Not like a tool, not smooth, more like ragged, repeated impacts. Whoever was inside had tried very hard to get out. He backs away at that point. In his statement, he says, "I just wanted to call someone who gets paid to deal with this kind of thing." He walks back to the truck, climbs into the cab, reaches for the radio, and stops. Because when he looks in his side mirror, he can see the van, and now the rear door is slightly open. Just a crack. He swears it was closed before, locked tight. He's sure of it. But he also knows how the mind works in the dark, on empty roads, after too many hours awake. So he tells himself he must have imagined the lock being stiff. Maybe it wasn't fully latched. He takes the flashlight again. This time, he doesn't call out. He just walks back, slowly, careful not to slip on the gravel. The closer he gets, the more that metallic smell intensifies. It's not like gasoline, not like oil, more like old coins held too long in your hand, copper and iron and something sour underneath. He grips the handle, pulls the door open, and everything he tells the radio show, everything he tells the local police, everything I later read in the internal report, compresses into a single sentence. That van was not for moving patients. It was for keeping them still. The inside is wrong. It's not the usual stretcher cabinet oxygen tank arrangement. Instead, the floor is reinforced with metal rails. There are 4 mounting points bolted into the steel, one for each corner of what used to be a bed or a table or something in between. The rails are empty now. Whatever was fixed there has been removed, maybe in a hurry. There are restraints still attached to 2 of the bolts, thick, padded cuffs, heavy-duty buckles, stained a dark brown that didn't come from dirt. Plastic wrappers lie scattered across the floor, sterile packaging for syringes, scalpels, tubing, all torn open, all used. There's the cooler, too, one of those heavy-duty transport models, wide, deep, with industrial latches. The lid is open. Inside there's melted ice, tinged red, pooled around discarded plastic bags, coiled tubing, and a single label floating near the surface. The ink has run, but one word remains legible: Renal. He told the police he didn't stay long, maybe 15 seconds, maybe 20, long enough to see the hooks along the walls, long enough to see the drain in the floor, long enough to notice there was no sign of a patient, no stretcher, no oxygen mask, no defibrillator, just equipment designed for one very specific purpose: extraction. He backs away, almost falls, catches himself on the doorframe. Something wet smears onto his hand from where he grabs it. He doesn't look to see what. He just runs. The 911 recording is short. He's calm, but his breathing is clipped. He gives the mile marker, describes the van, tells them there might have been an accident. He does not mention the cooler or the restraints. He says only that someone's been doing something they shouldn't in there. By the time the police arrive, he's already back in his truck, headlights on, hazard still blinking. He says 2 patrol cars show up, then a third, then an unmarked SUV. They talk to him for a while, ask him to repeat his story 3 times. First the uniformed officer, then the sergeant, then the man from the SUV who doesn't show a badge and doesn't give a name. That last one doesn't write anything down. He just listens, watching the truck driver's eyes more than his mouth, like he's measuring something. Finally, they let him go. He drives on. He doesn't look in the mirror again. This should have ended there. An odd story, a creepy van, maybe a criminal operation, maybe an illegal clinic. People would speculate, forget, move on. But 2 weeks later, the truck driver gets curious. He takes the same route, same time of night, same stretch of road. And when he passes the bend where the van was, the ditch is empty. Not just the van, the ground. There are fresh tire tracks where the patrol cars must have been, but no sign of anything else. No dark stains in the gravel, no trampled weeds, no shattered glass, no discarded packaging that might have blown away. Nothing. Like the van had never been there. He calls the station that took his statement, asks about the incident. The officer on the phone can't find the report. Says maybe it's still being processed. Transfers him. Another voice, more official, tells him there's no record of an abandoned medical vehicle on that road in the last month. He hangs up. A week later, when the story appears on late-night radio, he uses a fake first name, keeps the location vague, says just enough to let people imagine the rest. And that would have been the end of that, except someone was listening. I didn't hear it live. The audio came to me later, packaged with a neat little summary from a station intern who thought it sounded like one of your files, grandfather. They were right, because when I went looking, I didn't find an official report about a van in a ditch on that road on that night. But I did find something else, a registration log for a government-authorized medical transport vehicle, white, no logo, cleared to operate in that corridor. It had been reported retired from service 6 months before the truck driver ever saw it. Yet there it was, in the log, active, valid, marked with a single note in a field most people never scroll down far enough to see. External contractor, use only. The contractor field was blank. The plate number field was blank. The driver ID field was blank. But the usage record wasn't that night. Right down to the window of time when the truck driver said he saw it, there was a single entry attached to the ghost van. Route, border zone corridor. Status, in transit. Purpose, biological material transport. Cargo, redacted. At the very bottom of the page, one last field. Disposal, not required. Someone had gone to great trouble to make that vehicle untraceable, and yet they forgot to remove one small insignificant line from the system, one little fragment of a paper trail, just enough for someone who was looking to ask a question if the van was supposed to be empty, if it was officially retired, if there was no incident to file. Then why did a tired truck driver, with nothing to gain and no reason to lie, stand in the dark by the side of that road and smell blood? Because whatever that van was built to do, whoever it was built for, it was never meant to end up in a ditch where ordinary people could see inside. And that was just one van, one night, one road. Next episode, we'll talk about what happens when it's not just one.